So I initially didn't plan to make this video as I hadn't thought that I had anything valuable to add. However, Toby changed my mind, so shout out to Toby if you are watching. So as you may have seen from your home screens yesterday, the autumn budget came out, the new Labour government's first budget for a very, very long time. And in this budget, they outlined the ways that they were going to raise £40 billion in tax rises, among other things. So in this video, I'm going to give you my reaction to those main events and let you know a bit about what I think will affect investors going forward in the United Kingdom. So first things first, the rate of income tax remains unchanged for anyone earning income in the UK, which comes as quite of a relief for all of those who were at the edge of their seats, wondering if taxes would once again be on the increase. In addition to that, national insurance has also not increased, so it's good news for a lot of people out there. VAT also remains at 20%, so thankfully we don't have an increase on that. That will affect pretty much anyone regardless of how much you are earning. Now, it might sound like all good news for income tax, however, the income tax thresholds will remain frozen until 2028. The Labour government did not go ahead and reverse these changes, which will mean over 3 years worth of income tax bands being frozen, causing a lot of people throughout those years to be pushed into higher income tax brackets. For example, if you are at the edge of the 20% rate and you get a few increases over the few years, then yes, you might be pushed into the 40% tax bracket. This was a bit of a disappointment to hear because, of course, inflation has run rampage over the past 3 years, and we need increases in our wages in order to be able to buy stuff like egg and bread. And a lot of people are being pushed into new tax brackets where they perhaps don't deserve to be taxed at a rate of 40%, above a certain amount. Of course, in the UK, the tax bracket is tiered and staggered, so it doesn't mean you pay 40% on everything you earn just above that limit of 50,000 and X pounds. Additionally, the inheritance tax threshold freeze has been extended to 2030, extended by another 2 years, and this will affect a lot of people, especially later down on in their investment journey. So perhaps one of the headline features of the new budget, I'm saying features but really I shouldn't say features, is the fact that legal minimum wage for over 21s will increase from £11.44 per hour to £12.21 per hour, which is a nice little increase. But again, compared to what we have seen with inflation, does it really help? Of course it helps, but a lot more has to be done for those people who have been pushed down into the poverty line, and that represents a huge amount of people since 2020, unfortunately. If you are between 18 and 20, the minimum wage will go up to £10, which is actually really great. I remember when I was 18 and working, I was earning £4.95, I believe, so yeah, double that. But of course, I didn't have that crazy amount of inflation we've seen over the past 3 years. So in terms of pension, basic and new state pension payments will go up by 4.1% next year, and this is because of the triple lock system. So far, all of these things are all well and good. However, as an investor, as someone who is very interested in investing and personal finance, none of what I've said so far, apart from the freezing of tax bands, really affects investors. So in this section, let's talk about all the changes that will affect us as investors in the UK. Now, the first is stocks and shares ISA. There was a lot of speculation that, the ISAs might be capped at £100,000, or perhaps they would be taxed on the way out, and other fear-mongering that we've heard over the past few months. Well, luckily, the Labour government has not touched any sort of things with our ISAs. We still have £20,000 per tax year deposit limit that we can put within our ISAs, stocks and shares ISAs, cash ISAs, innovative finance ISAs, and lifetime ISAs. So that's all well and good, and that becomes more and more important, as we will see now. Now, if you are investing outside of an ISA, here is the big kicker. So capital gains tax from disposing your shares. For example, if you bought £1,000 of Apple shares and then suddenly, you know, you made a profit and it was worth £10,000, well, that £9,000 will be taxed, maybe not all of it, because you do get a £3,000 per year, or at least this tax year, capital gains allowance. So therefore you would be liable to be paying tax on that £6,000 of profit, for example. Now, as it stands, before the budget was announced, capital gains tax at a basic tax raise amount was just 10%, meaning that for that £6,000 you'd only be paying £600. But now, under the new tax laws, for a basic rate taxpayer, you'll be paying £1,080 on that £6,000. Very basic example, you know, it does get more complicated than that. Now, as a higher rate taxpayer, you would previously have been paying 20%. So for example, on that £6,000 profit, you would be paying £1,200, which of course is a lot. You already paid tax on this money that you've invested. You've taken your personal risk. The government doesn't take risks, you know, when you're investing your money, but they are collecting money at the other end. So it does feel quite unfair. So now the new rate for higher rate taxpayers would be 24%, up from 20%. So instead of paying £1,200 in that example, you are now paying £1,440. And of course, this is by no means financial or tax advice. I'm just giving you a very rough and simple example, and your circumstances of course may vary. Luckily, the budget doesn't include any other things that we have to worry about as investors, but it just highlights the importance of, you know, having a stocks and shares ISA, and as much as you can, you should look into, you know, maximizing your £20,000 deposit, you know, allowance or limit, however which way you want to look at it. In addition to that, of course, pensions are very important and very tax efficient. So of course, I'm not saying, you know, just max out your stocks and shares ISA and forget about your pensions. So I personally am a very big proponent for an ISA, and my favorite ISA is a stocks and shares ISA, as it allows me to choose my own investments and, you know, live my life with the freedom that I want. When it comes time to retiring, I can sell off my investments in the way that I wanted to. For me, a very important part of investing is having low fees and lots of control over my money. And on this channel, I really only do recommend 1 or 2 companies, which you'll see all around my home screen. This is not going to be a promotion video. The links I always leave in the description down below anyway. But going forward, what I will emphasize on personally is to use up my current tax year ISA allowance. You can see right now I have used my ISA allowance, £20,000 out of £20,000. Of course, you have the complete flexibility of, you know, contributing towards a lifetime ISA, which is £4,000 maximum, or a cash ISA, stocks and shares ISA, and the £20,000, you know, tax year ISA allowance is £20,000 that you can split up between the 4. With the lifetime ISA, you do get a government bonus of 25%. So if you want to go that way, you could do that. So overall, the budget doesn't seem to be too unfair. I think capital gains tax had to go up anyway. And honestly, 24% at the higher end isn't that bad at all. If you're lucky enough to amass enough assets in order to retire, which is kind of what this channel is about, then, you know, even outside of an ISA, you're paying 24% maximum, which I think is completely fair. And I'm really glad it wasn't 45% like we've seen with the fear-mongering articles all over the news. So make sure to check out some of my other videos, and I'll see you in the next video.